Would like to briefly take a moment and say thank you to everyone who has continued to join us over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. The Holy Bible teaches us, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. If you'd like to join us over there, it's only $1 per month at the base level, and even less than that if you sign up for an entire year, and no matter what level you choose, it's fully refundable. First 90 days, no questions asked. What's the difference between YouTube and Patreon? At Patreon, we can take the gloves off. There are no censors. We have, of course, the Patreon firewall, and then we also have Vimeo that we're partnering with, and that gives us one extra layer of protection where we can speak our minds and we can take advantage of rights that we used to enjoy in this country freely. Would love to have you over there. There are hundreds of exclusive videos never before seen here on YouTube. Please, if you have the ability, would love to have you over there. You won't regret it. God bless all of you, and thank you so much. Now, we're going to start here real quick. This is, of course, an image of a winged serpent. This is actually right off of a wall found in Egypt. South America refer to them as Quetzalcoatl. We've seen images like this, the head of a serpent, with some type of a flare or a mane around it. This is a bit more of a artistic rendering of what they believed it was. But one of the things that we always saw in these representations is, of course, the head, and then the neck, and then about a quarter of the way down, this is where the wings were, and then the rest of the body. So I found something down in Antarctica that I think you guys will find very, very interesting. Now, this region that I've covered before has a lot of different things in it. And I'll zoom out real quick, just to give you guys a basic idea of where it is. It's down here. Here's, of course, where Argentina would be. And if you come down here to this large bay opening, you come to this region where I found just tons and tons of things. And of course, one of the tricks that you absolutely have to use is changing the perspective. You have to look at this as if you're in a plane coming in for a landing. And a lot of these we've covered in other videos, the artificial river launch site, the Red Falls. Here, real quick, I wanted to show something. Now, of course, we're looking at 2012 here. What looks like very, very worn, but a staircase that went up the side of a mountain. Especially if you zoom in here at the bottom, you can clearly see what look like steps that were created somehow to traverse up the side of this mountain. Now, of course, over time, it looks like the ends of these have collapsed or different landslides have destroyed it. But it looks like someone had constructed a way to go up the side of this mountain. Over here, the first thing I thought was this was a rock. But then I thought, what if this was actually the stump of a tree? Now, strangely enough, at the edge of this, whether it's a rock or whether it's the bottom of a very, very large berry tree, we see something that looks strangely like the carved head of a serpent with some type of a headdress. I mean, that's pretty distinct, pretty clear that that's what that is. And to go back real quick to this, when you see that, and then you see that, that's pretty clear to me. I don't know about you, but that's, you know. And there's a smaller one here. And it looks like there might be one on the backside over here. That perhaps this could have been part of a structure at one time where these were more pronounced than what they were. But this isn't even the best find. And of course, I'll leave all of these locations. over here, sorry, this takes just a little bit of time to do. Now remember our picture of the carving from Egypt, where we saw a large serpent, the head, and then about a quarter of the way down, we saw what were wings. Well, up here, coming through the snow, in a very distinct pattern, we see what looks like, down here, the head of a serpent. And as we trace up the mountain, a very distinct spine. And it's very, very different than other, like, quote-unquote, rock ridges. It's very uniform. It's very straight. It almost looks like vertebrae. And then, of course, strangely enough, we'll zoom out here. Here's where the head would be, where all of the pictures said the wings would be, is this area here where the snow's all disturbed, where these wings might have just caused some type of a different impression underneath the snow, and you can see how far out this impression goes. That this might have been the final resting place of one of these large serpents. And we'll do a quick measure here. Just under 400 feet long. And the reports of these is that they were giants. And it's very difficult to see, but down here there is very clearly, let's see if I can, the opening of the mouth would have been here, and then here's an eye, and then here's an eye. Here's where the skull is right here. And what's odd about this is that if you look at the region where this is, there's this large flat plain on top of the mountain where it is said that Quetzalcoatl lived on top of a mountain, but that he was born in, or she, I guess, I don't know, in this pool. Well, down here you would see where, if this was flowing water down this waterfall, there would be pools down here, and oddly enough, if you look farther down the mountain, you start to see some very strange things. You see this repeated, what look like, might have been eggs with baby snakes. Here and here, you see this weird, there's a yellowish tint, and then there's what looks like this small curved structure. Here, here, you see one here, and then farther down the mountain, you see even more of them. Here, here, here. There's like 7 or 8 of them right near this. And like I said, I will give you the coordinates for this, and you can look at this for yourself. But when you look at this, and you see this very distinct spinal structure, the skull here, and then over here on the same mountain, these very strange tadpole, shrimp type structures, just for lack of a better term. You know, here, here, that would make 3 of them, 4 of them, 5, 6, 7. I count at least 8 in proximity. And then you look at this, and this. And this is what people actually scrawled on the side of a wall. This isn't an artist's representation. This is right from Egypt. It makes you think. It really does. Given the ties that we've been able to clearly establish between. Antarctica, South America, and Mexico. And then over here, we'll go back here one more time just to show you this. This just sticking out of the rock here. We have what's very, very clearly the carved head with some type of a, I don't know what over here, whether it's the top of this or whether this is another statue facing 90 degrees away. It's very clear that this is something that was not a natural formation. This is hand of man. Now, one thing I wanted to cover real quick, and as we get out of here, was this thing we had talked about with the birds over here. I want you guys to consider something as I change perspective here. And I'm doing this for reasons that maybe you guys can see something from a different way. When I came here and I looked at this, I forgot to let you guys know that this was the side of a mountain. This wasn't flat. This wasn't on the ground, what you were looking at. This would have been what it looked like from the ground. So it's on this angled hillside. And of course, a lot of you have mentioned this larger head of a bird over here that I had forgotten to even talk about. Is it possible that what you're looking at here was done in relief, meaning that this picture of the human figure kneeling, worshiping this bird, and this bird could have been done where they just raised the rocks, so to speak, a little bit higher than all of the rocks around it? We know also that during this time in antiquity that they had the ability to create dyes and paints. Could there possibly have been, on top of this being done in relief, paint of some type that had been put on top of this that's worn away over the years? Maybe that paint had some type of a hydrophobic property to it. We've seen that as well. Different chemicals have the ability to keep snow and ice from forming. That this very well might be that these rocks here, and it would be hard to tell with this picture, they might can be completely, a foot higher, 2 feet higher than all of the rocks around. And having been coated with something, some type of a paint or chemical, maybe just over the years, they, remained less apt to retain snow. And that's why when we see the melt here, we see just the figures that appear. And this would have been something that when we look at the figures down in Peru, the Nazca lines, those are thousands of years old. Clearly, they took pains of some type to make sure that those images remained visible for a long time from the sky. This might have been just a different technique. So as you can see, this is what it would look like from the ground, as close to the ground as I can get, and you still see it. I mean, just imagine if these had been painted with different colors. Especially the bird one, especially this one here. It's very hard for me to imagine that without some type of interference from man, that the side of this mountain, just ever so coincidentally, decided to melt in a way where the head of a bird and wings appeared here, the body of a bird and the head of a bird appeared here, a larger bird appeared over here. This is all just coincidence, apparently. And then over here we have what is clearly, you can see 5 different parts of this that point to human being. Feet, shins, thighs, trunk, arms, head. I mean, And you can zoom out from a long way away. In fact, I was when I found this, especially the bird, and see this on the side of this mountain. We also know that a lot of these cultures venerated mountain-dwelling types of beings. I personally think it's one of the reasons that people began building pyramids, is because they wanted to build basically a human-made mountain, attempting maybe to bring the gods to them, so to speak. But that's just a personal belief. So, strangely enough, though, the last place we'll leave about talking about winged serpents. You see, there was another winged serpent I wanted to show you guys. It was this winged serpent that arrived in New York in 1982. Kind of an interesting name for a winged serpent, don't you think? Interesting year, too. 1982. 1982 was the same year that the U.S. entered in massive recession, and a certain building opened up. And you can look this up for yourself. Isn't that odd? That between here and the time that a certain person took office, 34 years, took place. We had this happening in 82. We had this happening in 82. We had the largest cash heist ever in the history of the world, $9.8 million in New York as well. So be careful who you watch. Be careful what you follow. And be a guardian of your eyes and your ears, your gates of your mind. It's one thing we teach at the Patreon channel. So I will leave it there. So, and let you ponder the idea of winged serpents and what they might be capable of. Like, share, subscribe.